You've seen the man. You've heard the man. That man is Andrew Johnson. And now, for the first time ever, anywhere on planet Earth, or any other planet in our solar system, or in our galaxy, though maybe in another dimension or alternative universe, but anyway, for the first time in a brand new thingy, Unite Planet give you, the viewers, the opportunity to pose your questions to Andrew Johnson in, wait for it, in Ask Andrew.
Hello, welcome to Unite Planet and the very first Ask Andrew.
It is.
We'll be posing questions to Andrew Johnson in this new thing we're doing, what would you call it?
Feature?
Feature, I like that. New feature. I like that. Brand new feature. We're going to ask questions and each person who gets a question read out has a special pen. And then at the end of the questions, Andrew will pick his favourite question, and that person who put that question in will go into a draw at the end of the year to win a bigger prize.
Yeah, don't know what that is yet, but maybe like a mug, maybe a t-shirt, who knows?
Who knows, could be anything, literally.
Yeah. Magnet for your fridge.
Yeah, you never know. Okay, Andrew, first question. This comes from Lewis Knight, thank you Lewis. And he says, to ask Andrew, if planet Venus can debunk climate change.
Why this is a sort of an issue is that in the past it's been claimed that the atmosphere of Venus is a result of runaway greenhouse effect, because it's a very sort of thick atmosphere, and I think it's meant to have a lot of sulfuric acid in the atmosphere. This traps the heat from the sun and it makes the surface temperature 200 degrees centigrade. So it's more complicated than that, I think, really. I don't think Venus can debunk climate change because they actually use it to support their argument. They use it to say that's what causes it. But as you know, I've written in my books, the issue is hugely complicated. And so really you need to think about the fact that on the Earth we've had a warmer climate in the past. You know, they used to grow grapes in England. So people were still living then, you know, and they were growing grapes and using them. So just even though we might have a 1 or 2 degrees warmer than we are now, it's not going to be the end of the world. That's a very basic issue which everyone should be able to agree on. You know, so the Venus thing doesn't really factor it in. They say it's worth being aware of what their claims are and why they claim it, but beyond that, Venus is kind of irrelevant to climate change. It is more relevant is the evidence that, as I write in my book, the Global Warming and Climate Change Exposed, I've put in there all the planets in the solar system have undergone changes within our lifetimes. You know, those are significant changes in the atmosphere and stuff, but yet we don't hear about human activity on Saturn. You know, human activity on Uranus causing. You know, because we've been driving too many cars around there and producing too much emissions. And then, of course, you know, just briefly finishing off of that now, we can go back to the other interview we did about that. But Hurricane Ariel on 9/11, around the time of 9/11, that to me is evidence of particular and careful weather control. So if that is real, that it did happen, as everything I've seen suggests that means that the climate change thing is a con, like cancer, like we've just been doing, is exactly the same.
Exactly, Thank you, Lewis. A pen is coming on your way.
Question number 2 comes from Kiss Stomp Kiss. Thank you very much, and a pen's coming your way. So, one of the questions is, how does Andrew feel about Brexit?
I don't really think about Brexit much, because it's another of these somewhat artificial issues, really. Because most of the world's economies are run by banks. So the fact of whether we're meant to be part of Europe or not part of Europe, those banks are still going to be in charge of running the economies and, you know, doing their behind the scenes dealings, manipulating politicians. And similarly, we've talked about big business as well. So they're to me have more influence on whatever effects Brexit might have than Brexit itself.
Now that is money. It really is the root of all evil.
And this whole idea of things like asylum seekers seems to be being driven by actions which are taking place behind closed doors, and displacing all these people, bombing Syria and displacing these people into other countries, which then seems to have a knock-on to people coming here. That's all been set up, that's not accidental.
Yeah.
It's, and so this whole Brexit issue, certainly it's been going on now, I think for 3 years nearly, is it? I think it was 2016 when they had the referendum. Coming up for 3 years. And it's just another issue which, it's not going to be affected. People are not going to talk about weather control and, and cancer cures. The Brexit issue is, it's not really affected by any of that. It's just a political argument. And as I say, whether we're part of Europe or not part of Europe, to me makes very little difference. There does appear to be some agenda to do with it for the EU getting control of certain aspects of British interests, like the military. There's meant to be an EU or NATO police force or something being formed, and that seems to be somewhat hidden within the Brexit issue. So I can certainly accept those that might argue that they're burying things within the Brexit issue and EU legislation, which when we agree to leave or agree to stay, whichever it ends up being, and frankly I don't know what will happen, those laws may then be triggered and we end up with less control of our resources and our organisations as Britain, as a country, as a national interest than before. Whichever way it goes.
It does seem like they want to break up sovereignty and all that, don't they? But,
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Andrew, for that.
Thank you very much.
Right, we've got a question here from Lee Hawkins. Thanks very much, Lee. Again, a pen will be coming your way. It's kind of got a two-part question that's kind of linked. First, I want to know, is there any new lectures you've got planned for the future?
No particularly new lectures, really. As I was talking to Paul when we were coming here today, I just do lectures by invitation. I don't really organise my own lectures or anything. I don't do what Richard Hall does. That's for several reasons, but primarily, as I was also saying to Paul, it's very difficult to get people to come along to these smaller venues and find out, where things are happening. And I've done this in the past and had very, very low attendance and this sort of thing. So, it's just much easier to put stuff onto YouTube and get reaction to that for somebody like me. Obviously, Richard does it with his tours, and people come to his tours. And the way he's done that is very, certainly very impressive to me. Really, the way he's managed to do it. But I don't think I'd be capable of doing something like that. So the short answer is nothing planned. But if people want me to do talks, they just have to ask me, and I've got a little document which you can download that has all the details in there, all the talks. I do talks on expenses only. I don't ask for a fee. People want to give me a fee, I'll usually accept it. But people will pay my petrol and overnight stays, if there is any expense for that, I'll stay in somebody's house or something, so there's sometimes not a cost for that. But I've done that for 10 years now, so anybody that's interested in that can just contact me.
Thank you.
And following on to that, he said he saw your Wilbur Smith lecture on YouTube. He said he saw part 1, he enjoyed that, but he said part 2, he says it seemed to be taken off due to copyright. Yeah, there was something in that part 2. I think it was some clip I'd had from a Channel 5 documentary about Buzz Aldrin, and it was on there for a couple of years on YouTube, and then it just went. I think it might be on Dailymotion, so you can look on Dailymotion. Right. But you can contact me for the link or look on the website. I can't remember if they took it off there as well, but I know that there was a problem that you can get the DVD for 45 pence plus 90 pence postage or whatever it is, or £1 postage to cover my postage. So if you want the DVD thing, you can stump up £1.45 and I'll send you it on DVD. There you go.
Okay.
There you go. Can't say further than that.
Exactly. We'll put a little link on Andrew's website as well.
Yeah, if you want to check theevidence.com, for those that are not familiar.
Question number 3. Can I continue with Kiss Stomp Kiss, or shall I just jump on
We'll go to the next one. We'll have it Kiss Stomp Kiss. We'll get one another one in the next edition.
Okay, all right, fair enough then.
You lucky bleeder. Go on.
Well, yeah, that's good. So you'll have like more pens than we have, I think.
Although before I say, we should just point out that when you do ask questions, just try and stick to one question. So because you'd be taking up 3 questions in one. We can't give you 3 questions. It's not fair on the other people who just have one.
Yeah, that's true.
So if you do have questions in, it's more than 3. We'll just take the top 1. Okay, go.
So, question number 3. Mango Mash is asking Andrew, 5G, is it safe?
5G, yeah. So this is something I think, it's one of those issues which is people will actually exaggerate or distort facts on both sides to suit their view of it. So obviously the manufacturers and the mobile network operators are going to say, yeah, it's totally safe, no worries, just forget about it, we're just going to put it in, there won't be any problems, there's no health issues, just forget about it. They're going to say that because they, I think the licenses they're spending like £1.5 billion on licenses for various parts of the spectrum. So I will accept that they're going to play down or suppress any studies which talk about negative health effects. However, on the other side of it, people are saying that, there are 5G satellites being put into orbit to beam down microwave energy onto us and kill us all. Really? I don't think that's necessarily true either. So the skeptics or the people that don't want 5G will also distort and exaggerate facts to suit their agenda. So we've already seen examples of that. Now I don't know all of the technical details about 5G. From my understanding, certainly as we speak now in February 2019, certain standards are still being developed, and actually one of the modules which I tutor on for my OU work has a section on it about 5G. And I know from that some of the 5G signalling uses the 800 megahertz band, which was what has been used on the ordinary cellular network anyway. It's been in use since the 90s. So that part of the spectrum is being used for certain things, and it has been used for 20 years. So are there going to be health effects from that? Well, not to my knowledge, because we haven't seen. I know there's various claims, and I have no problem with people that say that if you have your mobile phone next to your head for 3 hours a day, you are more likely to get a brain tumour. I think that's probably true. And I think if you really push the cell network operators, they would probably agree with you. But what's going to be the other thing that is of concern with 5G is that they're using higher frequency radio waves. They're using, I think, 27 gigahertz. It's either 26 gigahertz or 27 gigahertz. Short range. I think that. And then there's also 40 gigahertz, which is in use. And these are much higher frequencies than have been used up to now for the mobile communications network. And some of these are in the millimeter wavelength. So that is of some concern. And I haven't done enough of my own research to know how much of a health concern that would be. Certainly on the face of it, yes, I would be concerned that they are proposing to use these wavelengths in environments where there are going to be a lot of people in cities and stuff. So I do think, yes, there could be some health effects created from those, and I think it would be good to get better information, but it's very difficult because of the emotive arguments that are being made to get truthful information. So that's about all I can say on that right now, really, without doing more research.
It's basically people do their own research as well, and it makes a message into it.
But I think that brings me. I don't know if you got this other question about doing. You had another question about doing research, didn't you, from somebody? So that will hook into that next question when that comes up.
Okay. And final question of this edition comes from Lisa Houserman.
Good old Lisa.
From Lounging with Lisa. YouTube channel.
She's great, Lisa. Yeah,
she is.
It's great channel. Have a look at her channel. It's little games she has.
Yeah, she's a very funny lady. Yeah, I like her.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Lisa. Again, a pen will come your way. She's also got a two-part question that kind of links, so it's sort of one. So are you ready for this, Andrew?
I'll go for it, yeah.
From Lisa. She says, how do you handle being so darn good at researching many different topics?
Well, I suppose it's a mixture of things, really, some of which are anyone can do, and some of which require a bit more work, really, I suppose. I think because I've got a background in engineering or a discipline of engineering, software engineering, that, and Richard and Hall and I have had this conversation, I think, on his program, that we're used to doing fault finding. You know, we have been paid money to fix something, so you have to go in there, break things down into small pieces, and find out where the problem is, and then fix it. So some of the research skills come from that having that experience professionally and commercially. That's one aspect of it. Another aspect of it is having a science background, because, you know, obviously you're dealing with factual information in science, and you're dealing with experiments, you're dealing with looking at things that are directly true or not true. And so that those two, the scientific aspect, having a science background, and engineering sort of go hand in hand, really. So I would advise anyone that if you're looking at any research, if you haven't got a good science background, then try and improve it. Try and study some, like, for example, going back to the Open University, they offer some free courses in subjects. It's called OpenLearn. You can look at OpenLearn. Why not do one of those? You know, it's like a 10-week course, I think, or a 6-week course that you can do. I think a lot of them are free. You know, pick a subject that looks interesting, which might be a basic science course. It might even be looking at something like global warming, and if you can stand it, and it's a free course, try and stick with it, try and go through it and see what you learn. You know, obviously you can be skeptical. Or it might be something about genetics. There may be a course on genetics. I'm not sure what's in the OpenLearn catalogue, but some of them are free. So try and you've got to formalise the study. You've got to try and if you know, if you can get some kind of assessment as well, that's a part of that, and somebody can give you feedback on what you've done in that. Because, you know, I had to go through a degree where I had to complete work, people gave me work to do, that work was then marked, I was told what was good about it and what was not good about it. That is often what is missing from a lot of people's research, you know, where they need to be told something that's incorrect. You know, and I mean, going back to my own, without going into all my tutoring and stuff, I have students that come back to me sometimes and they will tell me that what I've marked was wrong. You know, wrong. I've marked it wrongly, or I've misunderstood what they've written or something. And if they can show me where I've gone wrong, you know, we're allowed to change the mark within a certain time period after we assess some work. So you need to be able to develop that skill, both of following a set of, you know, work to do, a set of tasks to complete, which you may not agree with all of them. You may think it's, you know, you need to go through that process and develop your skills to both complete tasks to an agreed, you know, standard or an agreed level, but then if it's appropriate, to argue where that whatever's been shown to you is wrong or inappropriate, or the assessment of that is wrong. But you can only do that if you're willing to go through that process of doing that task, whoever's set that task. You might not agree with the way what's in the task, how it's worded, but it's through developing those skills that you will ultimately get better at research, because you'll have a better mind, you know, a better judgment as to what is valid and what's not valid. And then outside of all of that, there is intuition, of course. And some people, you know, a lot of people write to me and say, you know, I knew that you were correct in this part of research because my intuition told me, and what you found agreed with my intuition. Now, of course, I get the opposite of that as well, as my intuition tells me that you're wrong, but then they say, well, I don't have anything to back that up, you know. So there is, of course, there's an element of intuition, and I think a lot of this people come to this through intuition. But in the way that our world works, which is generally most people are in the alert and problem-solving state, and that's where they spend most of their mental time functioning. They're in that, you know, people are generally concerned with things that can be counted, weighed, or measured, which is what Graham Hancock says. This is the alert way. So if you come to them just with intuition, occasionally they'll listen to you, but a lot of the time they won't. So you need something more than intuition to beef up whatever statements you're making within whatever topic you're researching or presenting.
Very well, Paul. Very well said.
That's very good.
Very good.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope that answered that question. And then to follow on to that, Don't know how you can answer this. She says, how do you manage to look so stunning in that shitty blue fleece? It's not great today, but... So
well,
how do you maintain
I don't.
dashing?
I don't is the answer. I just
Lisa would disagree.
I just put on whatever I'm wearing and
hope for the best.
Hope for the best. Basically, hope that I don't look too disheveled out. And
Never, Andrew.
But it's funny how that whole thing has taken off. It's become quite a phenomenon. Obviously, it's kind of a standing joke.
Now on with the show, featuring the man in the shitty blue thing. So from the man in the shitty brown suit to the man in the shitty blue fleece, welcome back, Andrew Johnson.
Thanks for inviting me back, Richard. Here we are again.
So, where's the shitty blue fleece?
Well, I was considering a ceremonial burning after the various, ping-ponging of comments, and all I will say is that people can't see what trousers I've got on. So.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. You sit in front of a camera. If enough people watch it, they start to perhaps think about other things other than what you're saying. You do end up getting comments about, not just clothing, but things like lighting or decor. Obviously we've had Milo walking through the shot, and I'm sure you'll get a few comments like that, which is good, But I think certainly clothing, it's not something I really think about. As my wife and children will tell you, I don't spend a lot of money on my wardrobe.
No, don't blame me at all on that one.
Well, that's excellent, Andrew. That's all the questions. You've answered them really, really well. So we're going to have a quick recap of the questions and then...
Okay,
and then
all right,
see
good,
which one you're going to pick as your question of the...
Question of the day.
Of the day, yeah, question of the day. So we had Kiss Stomp Kiss. He asked about Brexit. Mango Mesh, the 5G question. You had Lewis Knight, who posed a question about Venus and its links to climate change and debunks it. You had Lee Hawkins, who asked about lectures and the Wilbur Smith lecture and why that was taken off. And Lisa's questions.
Yeah, I think the question about research, was perhaps an important one, because that's not a question that often gets asked, and I think it's very important, particularly as some of the other things we've talked about. So I'd say Lisa's question on the research issues, and this is something, just to add a little bit to that, Richard Hall and I might sort of explore that area more in a future scenario. It's certainly something he and I have talked about. Whether we end up doing anything on it, but that we might try and expand on that a little bit.
Excellent.
In a future sort of feature or video or whatever, perhaps.
Excellent.
Okay. Brilliant.
So well done, Lisa. You've been the star question today. So you'll be going in the hat later on in the year. For those, obviously Lisa and all the rest, for us to send you the pens, please email. We'll send the email link there, and we'll put it at the bottom as well. And just email us your address, and we'll send you one of these lovely pens. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you, Andrew, on the...
Thanks, guys. Yep, great.
Yep. On the first edition of Ask Andrew.
Yeah.
And
don't forget to send your more questions in.
definitely, yes, of course. I forgot about that. Well done, Paul. Well done,
You're
Paul.
welcome.
We need more questions.
I'm useful every now and again.
So any means, on the comments, email or Facebook, and you may get read out again on the next edition of Ask Andrew. Thank you very much, Andrew.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.